video we'll discuss 4 Excel functions which are used to round numbers up or down. Okay, the round function, the round up, the round down, and the INT function. So the round function will round a number off to the nearest integer if you say 0 is the second argument. If you say 1 is the second argument, the nearest tenth. 2 is the second argument, the nearest hundredth. Minus 1 will round it off to the nearest 10. And minus 2 the nearest hundred, etc. So I've got some numbers here. Let's see how this goes. So if I'd say round the number, and I should basically $sign the G, and I would say to this many decimal points in effect, $sign the 3. Okay. So now let's copy this across and down, and let's go over what we get. Okay. So we go 0, if we use 0 as the second argument there, okay, then basically we're going to round to the nearest integer. This rounds up to 81, down to 80, minus 6 is closer, minus 5 is closer to that. Now here, it could go minus 5 or minus 6, it chooses minus 6. Here it could go 80 or 81, so it's rounding away from 0, it goes to 81. That stays at 585, that rounds up to 81, stays at minus 5, stays at minus 348. Now if I do that to the nearest tenth, this becomes 80.5, 80.4, that becomes minus 5.6, minus 5.5, stays minus 5.5, stays the same, rounds up to 80.6, etc. Now if I round it to the 2 decimal points, this becomes 80.51, this becomes minus 5.55, and everything else will sort of be the same there. Now this means round to the nearest 10. So 80.51 becomes 80, 80.43 becomes 80. Minus 5.55 rounds down to minus 10. This becomes minus 10, minus 10. That rounds to 80. That rounds to 590. That rounds to 80. That rounds to minus 10. And that rounds to minus 350. Now if I do minus 2 as the last argument, it rounds to the nearest 100. So this becomes 100, 100. These all three round to 0. That becomes 100. That rounds to 600. That rounds to 100. That rounds to 0. And the closest 100 is minus 300 because that's closer than minus 400. Now round up rounds away from 0. So for a positive number it makes it bigger, a negative number makes it smaller. And again we can do the number of decimal points get treated the same way. So round up, so we would do this, and then we wanted basically how many decimal points. We want that to be 17, I think. Okay, so that's going to round up. So let's go through what we get with this. Okay, so this goes to the nearest integer because we're using 0 as the second argument. So 81, okay, we round up 80.43 to 81. This now rounding away from 0 means minus 5.55 becomes minus 6. Minus 5.45 becomes minus 6. This becomes minus 6. That rounds up to 81. Stays the same. 81. That stays the same. Stays the same. Now if I go to the nearest tenth, this rounds up to 80.6. That rounds up to 80.5, even though it's closer to 80.4. That rounds away from 0 to minus 5.6. Minus 5.5, it rounds away from 0. Minus 5.5. These would stay the same to 1 decimal point. Now 2 decimal points. That'll round up to 80.52. That'll stay the same. Now this one rounds down to minus 5.56 because again it's rounding away from 0. Then these will stay the same. Now this will be to the nearest 10. So 80.51 rounds up to 90 even though it's very close to 80. That rounds up to 90. This rounds away from 0 to minus 10, minus 10, minus 10. Rounds up to 90, rounds up to 590, rounds up to 90. Rounds down the minus 10 away from 0, rounds down the minus 550 away from 0. And now these round up to the nearest 100. 80 becomes 100, 80 becomes 100. Minus 5 will round down away from 0 to minus 100, even though it's closer to 0. These all round to minus 100. That rounds up to 100, rounds up to 600, rounds up to 100. Minus 5 is close to 0, but it rounds away from 0 to minus 100. Minus 348 is closer to minus 300, but it rounds to minus 400. Now the round down rounds towards 0. So for a positive number, it'll make it smaller. A negative number, it'll make it closer to 0. Okay, so round down. So again, we're going to go right here. So we want column G, And then we're going to $sign the row here, I think. So that's the row. Okay, so now if I copy this here, and then we'll do the INT function, which doesn't have that second argument. Okay, so with 0 as the second argument, we round down towards 0 to the, if it's a positive number, we round it down. If the second argument is 0 to the integer lower, if it's a negative number like minus 6.5, we'll round it to minus 6, okay, because that's closer to 0. So 80.51 rounds down to 80, 80.43 down to 80, minus 5.55, so you see here it became minus 6, but here it becomes minus 5 because you're rounding towards 0. This gets rounded towards 0, minus 5, rounded towards 0, 80 rounds you towards 0. 80.55 is closer to 81, but basically it rounds down to 80, and these will stay the same. Now if you go to tenths, we round 80.51 down to 80.5, 80.43 down to 80.4, minus 5.51, okay, we're rounding towards 0, so it rounds to minus 5.5. This is in the middle, but it rounds towards 0 to minus 5.4. Well, here it would have rounded to minus 5.5. This stays the same. This stays the same. This rounds, okay, down to 80.5, the nearest tenth, rounds towards 0, etc. Now, if I go to 2 decimal points, this becomes 80.51, rounding it down. And then 2 decimal points, this becomes minus 5.55, okay. Because it could become minus 5. There it became minus 5.56. That's the difference. Okay, and then everything else would stay the same. Now this rounds to the nearest 10. Rounds down to the nearest 10. So 80.51 rounds down to 80. 80.43 rounds down to 80. Now these round towards 0. Okay, so they don't round to the nearest 10. I was wrong on that. They round down towards 0 to the nearest 10. So the minus 5.551 is going to round to 0, even though it's closer to minus 10. See, here it rounded to minus 10. Okay, and this rounds to 0, rounds to 0. This rounds to 80. This rounds to 580. It's right in toward, because it's rounding down towards 0. This rounds down towards 0 and 80. The minus 5 could have gone to minus 10 like it did here, but it goes towards 0. Minus 348, much closer to minus 350, but it rounds to minus 340. If I want the nearest 100 and I'm rounding down to 0, then all of these round to 0, because that's the nearest 100 closest to 0. Now the 585 would round to 500. That rounds to 0. That rounds to 0, and this would round down to minus 300. Now INT takes a positive number towards 0 as an integer and a negative number away from 0. So if I would do INT here, okay, so this it's like it rounds this down. 80.51 becomes 80, 80.43, 80. But see, the minus 5.55 rounds down, INT makes it a minus 6, makes this a minus 6. Okay, and see, that's not going to happen in any of these situations that we had. There's nothing that goes 80, 80, minus 6, minus 6, so this is a little bit different. This rounds away from 0 to minus 6. This rounds down to 80, 585. This runs down to 80, minus 5 there, minus 348. Okay, now if I would make this minus 5.1 though, it would round down to minus 6. Okay, so there you have 4 functions which are closely related but are different, as we can see. Okay, so in summary, the rounds to the nearest integer, the nearest tenth, the nearest 100. The round up is like the round, but it rounds away from 0. The round down rounds down towards 0, not necessarily to the closest one. And then the INT will always take you to an integer. A positive number moves towards 0, a negative number away towards 0. Hope that's helpful.
Okay, so thanks for watching, and there's a free course, a free 21-day course from Dr. Winston, and all of these videos are coming from one of 3 books. So first, this one, which you can see here at the top of the screen, Microsoft's book, which has 355 reviews, and then it's, let's see, 4.6 stars. It's coming from this book as well, his marketing analytics book, which is down here, and you can sort of see 4.5, or his newest book, his analytics stories book, which is here. And with that one, you can see it's 4 point something, or maybe even 5. I don't think it's 5. Yeah, 4.8. And so yeah, anyways, in the description, there's a free 21-day course from Dr. Winston, or you can go to excelwithwayne.com/free, and it'll be there. But again, thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, just please let us know. Thanks.